It takes forever. Oh, we're live. So now I gotta say, hello everybody.
Hello everybody.
Paranormal Brew. This is what, our third?
Yes.
This is our third.
Absolutely.
Our third week on Paranormal Warehouse. So thank you. And today we have another awesome guest, James Annitto. I don't know how you would like me to introduce you, Demonologist, Deacon, Deacon
Annitto.
Well, technical term would be Reverend Mr. James Annitto, but I don't like that name. So whatever you guys want.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
So, James, I want to share it onto the Brew's page.
Before we get started, I know we're live, so I kind of felt outnumbered 3-1 here. So I wanted to make the Brady Bunch. So introducing with me tonight, Carl Johnson, the man, the myth, the legend, is with me tonight as well.
Oh my gosh, yeah, bring him on in. Yay!
Discussion with us tonight.
May I come in on this?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Come on in.
There's two of us.
That's awesome.
So we just need one more person for freaking the Brady Bunch now. I don't know. I'm going to get a third person.
No, I love this. This is great.
Here we are together.
What a nice surprise.
You're not going to have
a while.
Personal questions, are you? Or?
No.
Let's just keep this very straight and above board. No paranormal or occult talk or anything like that. Talk about
Paranormal Brew for a reason,
Okay, we'll go with it.
We're drinking Fanta, so.
Well, still, that's no caffeine in that. So I don't know what to tell you. I don't think Fanta is caffeine.
If from time to time you see us reaching into our goodies bag, this is
she knows chocolates with me. Sabrina.
Hi there.
So I'm not leaving the hat on for real long, but I just wanted to give a little shout out to my boys,
the Redskins,
the Washington Redskins. Just saying. I had to.
Did they rename the name yet, or are they still doing because the trade issues, not the right issues?
The trademark guy, I know. I don't know. They haven't said anything yet about the name. So, I don't know.
I'm not going to get political on here, but it's a shame.
Yeah, it is a shame. What's a shame is like how, it'd be one thing if he was like, okay, I get it, but the owner, but he was bullied into doing this.
Yeah, we need this, right? We need that. So,
I mean, the man's loaded, but not 620 billion lost.
Yeah.
So,
that's crazy.
So from now on, I use UPS, not FedEx. From now on, I'll, Reebok, not Nike, all that stuff. So let's talk some good stuff.
Good stuff. Yes, good stuff.
Yeah, good stuff.
Hello, dermatologists, not just.
I told them we were dermatologists, Carl.
Oh God!
Great show. Are we?
I don't know.
We're going to talk about skin, aren't we?
Yeah, I thought.
Skin? Let's talk about skin.
AKA dermatologist.
I think there's been a terrible misunderstanding. Awkward. This is awkward. And how many people you have? Like 5,000-6,000 people watching this? And
Awesome.
It's awkward.
Oh, that would be awesome.
How much promo we do?
That would be really good networking for dermatologists.
Fine skin, less paranormal brew.
So fellas, glad you guys could join us this evening. On here we do only have an hour, and I feel like there's like so much to we can squeeze in an hour. So why don't we just take it back and just go up the timeline of, where you guys are now. I know you guys do like online stuff and you guys are doing this duo thing together now, but like, where you guys started and, if anybody has any questions, so just go ahead and just spiel us.
Lab away.
You start. Say how duo get started.
I said, you were going to say how I was like on GQ.
Sexy. Oh, you're sexiest man alive right here on GQ back in the 1950s.
Really? Well, we don't have a picture?
Late 1950s.
No,
that's not true. That's not.
He wasn't even alive yet, I don't think. Were you alive in the 50s?
Was I alive in the 50s in the biological sense, or was I alive in the 50s?
You were swimming around if you were actually crawling.
Swimming around. What do you mean, like?
Well, just watch Let's Who Talk.
Like
Let's Who's Talking.
Or something, or
there you go. Watch the introduction to Let's Who's Talking.
Protozoa? No, I was alive in the 1950s. I was born the year Elvis Presley debuted on the Ed Sullivan Show. How about that? About that.
Good old days.
I have been a paranormal investigator for no, it actually is 47 years. 47 years now. Started when I was 2.
Yeah.
No, it's been 47 years. And I grew up in a haunted house, and that's what sparked my interest in the paranormal. I mean, I was always reading about the subject, ghost hunting, ghost exploration, talking with spirits. Didn't know if that was possible. And we had strange things going on in my parents' house, furniture moving around. We had the basement, which used as storage. We'd always find things rearranged there. My mother was running the faucet, getting a drink of tap water, and her glass was empty. So mild but interesting stuff like that would happen. Then when I entered my teen years, I was 14 years of age when I started to play with the Ouija board, the spirit board. My sister was 13 at the time. And we did that for a couple of years, which I think just fueled the fire. And I began to see the specter of a female, of a woman down in my parents' basement. And I said, I guess this is what's moving things around and making noise and all. Saw her very clearly 4 times. So naturally, I was very interested in, the reality of spirits. Are they really deceased people? What are these things? They seem to have personality. And I even recorded one on an audio recording. I didn't know spirits could imprint their voices on audio recordings until that happened to me in 1973. So, and then I found out that's called EVP, electronic voice phenomenon. Then when I was 17 years of age, I went to see a lecture presented at Rhode Island College in Providence. The featured speakers were Ed and Lorraine Warren, the famed hunting couple. And my twin brother and I attended, Keith and Carl.
She asked about the timeline about duo, right?
Well, we got
we can start, Eventually,
yesteryears over here.
But listen, there's things that happen that bring 2 people together eventually.
Well, we got these timelines. This is me crawling up there, and then James comes in, and then we're bisect. We can say bisect on this show?
Probably,
okay, yeah.
Bisected.
And, that's how I began, became a paranormal investigator. I saw Ed and Lorraine talking. I said, that's who I want to be when I grow up. And so many stories diverged from that. And then I had a group going 10 years ago, precisely. It was called Beyond the Veil Paranormal Research. I was based in Woonsocket, Rhode Island. And James was in a convergent team, nearby. And we were working parallel on the same case. Then James joined the group I was in and became our tech manager right away. And we got to know each other. Then just circumstances caused us to drift apart. And then we started running into each other at paranormal conferences and events. And we spoke together at Mass Paracon
2 years ago.
Yeah, that was
2019. Yeah,
2019. And that was before. That's when we could gather in large groups.
Yeah.
And the Paracon in September of 2019. And James chose me as his guest speaker when he was giving a lecture. And we got such a good response. So we should take this on the road. We should do this. And Duo Demonology is an educational program. It's not strictly cautioning people against the dangers of occult practices. It's actually schooling people. And what we mean by demonology and how that can be applied. So we're a progressive unit, a research unit. You know, we're very direct in our talks, but every talk is different from the last one. Never repeat the same talk twice. So that's encapsulating how we got together. I could spend the whole hour talking about how we formed.
Yeah, how it came to be, because 10 years we've known each other. It's even though we've drifted apart, I really look at Carl as figuratively my first mentor within the field.
We didn't stay apart though, did we?
Oh no, it's not.
Stay that way.
It's not the destination, it's the journey, right, my friend? So, but in the same retrospect, though.
What do you mean by that? I'm going to be contemplating.
Oh shoot! But in reality, though, it's accumulation of his experience. I look up to the man, 47 years experience. Not many people that can say that.
And live to tell about it.
Or still alive.
Or still sane.
Or still yeah. Which I question your sanity sometimes. But
big
who
question.
cares? Big
Question
question.
of the night.
But yeah, Demonology is just basically was formed basically to get demonology out there and the misunderstandings and how there is a scientific approach to it. But some people don't understand that and jump to the preternatural as soon as possible. And, that makes us look bad. And, of course, I dealt it with Carl started a very long time ago, 18, 19 years old. I started at 15 and started, I hate to say it, but making a name for myself. People were understanding who I was. So I dealt with me being young and dealing with the transition. So I can understand that. But, no, it's definitely... Demonology is about getting the information out there to people,
and that's awesome because the shows that are on TV, and I'm not going to say all of them, but 95% of them give this misrepresentation about negative cases, and people watch this stuff and they take it like it's like the holy grail of and I'm talking about people that aren't in our world, you know what I mean, that don't know better, so like these people are watching these TV shows and they think, oh, they have a scratch, oh my god, I have a demon, and then shit hits the fan in their house, you know what I mean, and it's good that you guys are trying to educate. Do you find that it's more paranormal people that come, paranormal enthusiasts that come, or more people that like paranormal like groups?
Oh, both. I think it's mostly paranormal enthusiasts, but every once in a while we get a little cache of people who have problems and they have questions that they want resolved, and they think they maybe have a demonic influence in their life or their home, and they want to find out about that. But most people are very curious about the topic. It's a riveting, topic anyway. I mean, you say paranormal, okay. Think of ghosts, haunted houses, maybe a poltergeist here and there. Say demonology, people sit up and take notice. It's a little frightening and a little unsettling to people, but there's a reason it's called that, and it does tend to draw attention, which is why we have this educational team. Our goal is to legitimize demonology, accepted
by the academia field.
Most academics do not recognize it as a legitimate study, but we're trying to show that it is really and can be approached scientifically and analytically.
Yeah. Because even though demonology is off the branches of angelology and off of theology, which is an academia study, and I truly believe a science as well, the science of studying it, the science of God, what God is, and the ideologies that come from it. So theology is studied, but one thing is demonology wasn't as prevalent in theology as some people think it is. And when it was created more so in the circumferences of King James's mind and aspect of demonology, he really started a new revolution to where the word wasn't necessarily used before. There was the Maleficent that came out before demonology, and that really expanded on what demons could be and witchcraft and all that stuff. But demonology changed a lot. It inspired William Shakespeare to write Macbeth. So it was a big catalyst of a lot of change in pop culture back then, or cultures back then. So it was a really big shift. But, demonology is a study that can be adequately and dissected, and even psychologists that do have disorders in the DSM-5 that correlate to possession. There are psychologists out there that just don't disagree that spiritual possession is not impossible. It is possible. So it's interesting, and we like to research it and also deal with the cases of it.
Yeah, demonic possession is recognized psychologically, clinically as psychological abnormality and aberration. They may not, exceed that it's a demon invading the mind, but except in a metaphorical sense. But they do, it's a clinical term now, possession.
So
Personality.
So is it true that in order to perform an exorcism, you have to get the, the permission, would you say, from a diocese or I've always been told that you have to get the permission from, the Vatican. But, then I heard it was like, oh no, just like a local diocese or, a bishop or, you hear all kinds of stuff, right? I mean,
Are you thinking of asking permission for this? I mean, you're asking how does one get permission? That's what you're driving at, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, I don't want to know.
No,
but,
Well, it's also called dispensation, but that's usually an allowance of a procedure. But to obtain permission from the Vatican, if it's done through what would be called the proper and standard channels, that would be difficult because you need church investigation.
Yeah.
James can elaborate on that.
Yeah, it really depends on. A lot of people, of course, correlate exorcisms to the Roman Catholic Church or Catholicism, Christianity, but it predates Christianity. It goes to Judaism. Goes into Hinduism.
Yeah, pervasive
cultures and many different cultures, civilizations, beliefs. So it really depends on which way you look at it. Most churches or faiths that have the right do go through a channel. Even Hindus, the monks, would go through their proper channels, through their rituals, and of course get their permissions, and the Jews as well. And of course, in the Catholic Church, we have to do a true assessment of a case. I'm not Roman Catholic. I'm the United States Old Catholic Church, but we still take the liabilities and we do assess cases. If I take on a case and I start being involved in questioning the case nowadays, and if they're claiming possession, and I don't send my case files, my questionnaires, and my write-up to my bishops, I can get in very much trouble, because if I'm dealing with somebody that has not clinically been checked out by a psychologist or through a doctor, and I deal with that person, I can severely get in trouble, and I can severely cause liabilities for the church, because if I say something wrong without them looking at it or perceiving a way of investigating that case to present to an exorcist, and I go out of those steps, I can get in trouble, like I said. So
if you made an imprudent decision to address a case and
without telling my bishops,
without going through those channels, without telling your bishop, obtaining church permission, you would be regarded as a representative of the church. So therefore, you make the church be a liability. You make the church look bad.
And
so it'd be tougher for you.
And people tend to forget that with houses. I've learned this, and I made these mistakes. I've learned from the mistakes. Maybe we'll still make mistakes. We're not perfect, and I know Carl for sure. We live off mistakes because that's how you get experience.
They are stepping stones.
You learn from both.
They're a ladder.
But the thing is, though, like when you're dealing with people, I've come to understand you have to be careful what you say, what you do. If you're physically at a location, if you trip and fall, they trip and fall through a ritual or something like that, you're liable. People tend to forget that. So there are liabilities when you're involved at people's houses. And the one thing I never understood before I became Catholic clergy, as a deacon and went through seminary, the one thing I always despised about the Roman Catholic Church, why did they take so long? And I was a deliverance minister for the Church of Christ. I would constitute and go in and do deliverances over people and deal with people and do their blessings with a lot less people watching my back. If I felt it was necessary to do deliverance, I didn't need permission, really. Should I go through the proper channels? I could still do like a doctor, a psychologist, or something like that. But the church, the Catholic Church specifically, there are a lot of channels, but that's not a bad thing, though, because you really should truly dissect the case as best as you can, because I truly do believe now that I've come to understand how to dissect the case, and more research in psychology, anthropology, biology, human chemistry, which quantum physics, all these things that Carl and I research like madmen. Probably you guys as well that are listening, or of course you, Sabrina, Tony, and Taryn, that have researched as well. But we put a lot of that information in, and I've come to really believe that 99% of the stuff we deal with is natural occurrence. Maybe the human mind's playing on us, but why would it be called a supernatural, the preternatural, the paranormal, if it was occurring all the time?
That's the connotation it has. People think in terms of it's supernatural or it's not. Supernatural is not. It's fascinating to explore the mysteries of the mind because that's kind of nebulous and very.
Yeah. And parapsychology is another study that a lot of people, even though it has withered away from modern academia, still even though here's psi or psychokinesis and poltergeists and that format is interesting, but people like to quantify that they're dealing with a demon because that's what you see on entertainment culture.
And the popular paranormal, as I call it, just because you say paranormal doesn't mean you're excluding the normal in that, because in parapsychology, there's still psychology involved. It's just that people like to think in dramatic terms, and they think it's paranormal or it's no, come on, it's of the mind. No, it's paranormal. Yeah, it can be both. Actually, it almost always is both.
Yeah. Before we get too ahead of it, I do have a question here.
Bill Brock.
Who's that? Is that the filmmaker?
I think that's the most famous Bill Brock of the Conjuring House. I love Bill. He's a good guy.
This is a
We
fascinating
may have
question.
creative possession over the weekend. Will you ask if they think it's possible to open something then you think using magic become possessed, or is it something different because magic is used? I'll answer that quick, fast, but Carl has an extensive amount of history in Satanism and magic. So, yeah. He was the Satanist people, but he's not anymore. But the one thing about magic is what I try to call laws of intention, the laws of attraction, I believe the 6 laws, one of the 2 laws and the 6 laws that we follow perceivably for some people. So laws of intent is a powerful thing. And even Aleister Crowley's Magick, and then Magic, the normal definition of magic, that's all intent. Like regular magic, especially show magic, that's the intent. They want to fool you, but you're also giddy about it. So there's intent in that. Same thing with Magick, Aleister Crowley's The Book of Law, right? His intent was to change people's mindsets, give them the attention that they can put this and perceive and summon these demons, summon these entities. And in the same format, if you use the intent, if you believe that you are using a magical ritual, it's the same thing as praying. I do believe praying works, but it has a lot to do with the intention, what you're putting forth towards that. If multiple people do it, there's multiple people putting good intent out for that person. And I do believe we give off energy, and Carl can touch upon that a little bit more, but magic's intent.
We're batteries, biological batteries.
If you have a bad intent opening up an object or doing magic, then you might get what you're asking for or might not get what you're asking for. Kind of thing, if you're doing it in a positive sense, but it's still playing with fire, you never know what's going to come through that door. So it's
true.
And, who knows if possession happened. I do believe that you give up your free will for it to happen. That's how possession occurs.
I think you need more question. Like, the question is like, what was the magic used for, and what was involved, and the details weren't given to us, but he did mention Crowley, and Crowley just added the K because he wanted to differentiate between just regular magic that's like street magic, people just doing and then what he deemed real magic, and they just added the K. Just so people can know the difference.
His idea of magic was still of intent. That's what I
and he was amazing in terms of his work, and he was pretty much the master into our modern day history as probably one of the greatest ones to dealing with magic and spells and all that stuff like that. But
and he was adequately insane too.
he was out there. He was
adequately insane until he had his other child, and around 72 years old. That's when he basically saned out. But no, he was crazy, man. I would say
creatively crazy. You got to give him that.
Oh yeah.
Who was stuff though?
who was Sybil? I can't think of his name, but when I always think of Crowley, I always think.
What era are you talking about? You're talking about
I'm talking about Anastasia. I'm talking about the Russian.
Oh.
What's his name?
Rasputin.
Rasputin.
Igor
Rasputin. Another crazy bastard.
Yeah.
Did you guys argue back and forth about things a lot?
Grigory Rasputin, Efimovich Rasputin, 1871, circa 1871 to 19. Died December 16th, 1916. Yeah, I used to read up on this. Very interesting character.
Yeah, very like Crowley. Very like Crowley.
They have similarities. He was known as the new Messiah in Russia.
He was, yeah.
Let's talk Rasputin. What about Bill's question, though? Bill had asked, can magic, essentially he asked, can magic produce, create a demon and a possession? And can, magic be used to correct this? Well, of course, it depends on one's definition of magic. Magic, of course, in the Crowleyan definition, would be creating changes in one's environment in accordance to the magician's will. So, the basic answer is yes. You can create a demon magically. You can draw in a demon from an exterior source, and you can use magic to correct that, to close that hole. But broadly defining magic, it's just using this, harnessing a force. It's called magic because it's not clearly defined. It is a viable force of nature, and it can be used. It can be harnessed. With sometimes chaotic results, which is why we have chaos magic. But magic can do incredible things. I've employed magic, and I've tried to get some positive results from it. My magic is very, very unpredictable. Something I try to conjure, try to ask for, try to create. It will manifest maybe a year later in ways I just could not have guessed. It's just limitless. It's real. It's true stuff.
And I'm not saying that all magic's bad. I'm just saying in the ideologies of possession, some people are performing magic or performing ritual for a bad reason. I say it in that way because a lot of people tend to doubt the wrong arts, the black magics, the black areas.
So you concur that possession is always bad, not a good thing.
Well, angels can possess, but still, I think.
Oh, that's good.
I still think allowing invitation of anything into your body, or
it's curious.
It's scary. Why would you allow that? I would not. Even if an angel presented and say, "James, let me speak to you," I would say, "Oh God, no."
How do you know? Yeah, angels shouldn't be doing that anyway.
Well, they have.
What about people who channel during maybe a séance, or where they're trying to actually let a disincarnate entity speak through them, through a one-splitting person? That's a form of possession, but it's willful possession. It's channeling, as far as they think, controlled possession.
Well, I don't agree with channeling. I don't think you should allow yourself to open up and allow something to communicate with you. It's dangerous. It's like, take over my body, leave. What the hell is that? Why would you want that? I don't want to.
No, exactly. But me and Sabrina have been together since 2012, 2011. And Sabrina went, she went towards more of the negative cases, and I was always like, nope, Casper only. That's all I want. When we were in a group, it was like, we had different screening processes, and it was like, this is a green flag, yellow flag, orange, red. I'm like, I don't want anything with a pinkish hue. I don't want nothing. I just green for me, and I have successfully somehow have, prevented myself from going down that route. However, I do feel sometimes that I'm being pulled that way, but I kind of pull away from that. It's interesting that you were saying that because somebody else, I want to get to Miranda has a question about, but since this other person had brought it up.
Justin has a great question too.
Yeah, there's a lot of great questions.
Those are good questions.
Justin.
Try to make our answers more concise.
So here's basically, I think this is kind of like what we're saying. Somebody that is, what if you just want to study the evil side of every bit as much as the good? I'm someone, I believe in heaven and hell, so I have had questions in regards to if studying the other side means I'm automatically condemned.
I'll answer this fast and quick. No, it does not. I think if you have the intent of researching it for the right reasons, then there's a good intent involved. And after researching it for the wrong reasons, then once again, you're researching for the wrong reasons. So I think there's a difference. I think in that true aspect, like everybody says the demonology, why do you study it? You're saying the demons, blah, blah, blah. No, it's, I have to understand the characteristics. I have to understand what's going on that involves a certain deity.
Well, in many kinds of studies, especially when you get into studies of the mind and the metaphysics, you have what I can call an inextricable dichotomy. You can't study one without the other because they're parallel sides. You're losing something. Even defining good and evil becomes rather vague. If it's
dualism.
If it's dualism. If it's inconvenient, then it's evil. Of course, you've got to look at both sides. I think Bethany means like you're saying diabolism and devil worship and throwing curses, and that could be the dark side.
But I also think that if you're gonna be somebody that is a demonologist, you should, like, I've read the Goetta. Like, do I know how to do certain rituals throughout different belief systems? Of course I do, but have I participated? Physically done them? Have you done them? I think there's a difference. I think you should understand what the confines of a certain ritual are. You should, because how are you going to dissect and investigate something that you have no clear idea of? You should have at least an idea.
You have to know what you're getting into.
Yeah,
you have to.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's the same thing with all the books I have. It could be all sorts of occults and religions and everything, because you got to know, what these people, your clients, are their beliefs or what they have dabbled into, and where direction to go. So, of course, so it doesn't mean that just because I have, the Satan Bible, means that I'm worshiping Satan. It's just because it's an educational to understand, to get into that frame of mind.
An earnest paranormal researcher, especially a demonologist, should have the Satanic Bible and certain works by crowds like magic on their bookshelf in their library for reference. You might drop that book one time. Oh, what page is this on? But I'm going to put it down slowly. Like a physician is studying. Someone studying in medical school to become a surgeon. Yeah. They're going to perform dissections on cadavers, on human bodies. So, I mean, should a student of surgery say, no, I only examine the living. I have nothing to do with the dead. That is a failure. I should only examine the living patients. It's much more convenient to dissect a cadaver. Yeah. Most living people resent it, and you learn faster that way. So, I mean, it's exploration, really. Yeah. And we're driven by a need to explore. That's why we have advances. Yeah. I explored what could be called the dark side. It didn't seem so dark at the time. As James mentioned, what did you say I was?
Satanist. Well, you were a Luciferian.
Yeah, Luciferian. Yeah.
Which is different, but.
Well, I mean, and even though even though I'm more Casper, you still, like, even as somebody in my position, you still have to have a healthy respect for the other side. You have to know what you're seeing, looking for, dealing with, so that if I go into a house and I don't have Sabrina with me, and all of a sudden something happens, I'm running out and I'm calling James. You know what I mean? Because I'm like, some shit's going on and I don't know how to deal with it. Because there are groups out there that go in and they make everything worse because they don't know what.
It has been known. Yes.
And to be honest too, is even though we're just talking about ghosts and demons, Carl and I are well versed in cryptids and ufology and as well, because as Sabrina very much knows, we dealt with the case. And I dealt with another case that we both brought to MUFON. So we are somewhat well versed in those areas of paranormal as well, which you should be.
Person would be,
which you should be as well, because what happens if you're dealing with, like Sabrina and I did, you kind of have to dissect what we usually do, and then when it doesn't add up to what we usually do, and say, what could this be? We jump to the next thing, and we look at that.
That's tough to second guess paranormal phenomena. That's to throw you a curve.
Yeah, I mean, I do have a question though. You had said something about, when you have to make a client, that if there's a possible possession or a possible, whatever's going on there, let's just say it's legit, how do you get somebody that is, for lack of a better description, I'll say affected by the dark side? How do you get that person to comply or to do the things that are needed, in order for it to get to the final step of you guys stepping in to help?
You can't force. If the person will not cooperate, they won't. They have to meet you at least halfway.
Right.
Actually, subjectively, the person who cures themselves through guidance, through intercession. The person has to want that. They have to want to take direction. You can't force somebody to,
Sure.
Like the famous case of Annalise.
Oh, Annalise McCall? Yeah.
Annalise McCall, she could not be forced into advocating this, releasing the spirit within her. I don't know if she had a choice.
Mm-hmm.
You can bring the horse to water, but you can't force him to drink. So, if she was just asking, how do you help somebody? How do you get them to the point where they are going to be helped, and how do you get into their lives and into their mind and make them want them? It's up to the individual.
It is. It's really,
there's only so much you can do.
I feel like I talk about this every interview, but it's very important. As people know, Hippocrates, the father of medicine, performed exorcisms, psychotherapy. So with anything with psychotherapy, it is basically the mind over matter. To get over a bump, an addiction, you have to want to get over their addiction. If you don't, you're not going to get over it. So it's the same thing. Even though you're possessed, you got to remember what I said earlier. Possession only occurs when that person's free will is demoralized and they allow that invitation in. So in that same retrospect, they have to be willing to expel it as well. And a lot of people that are possessed, even though it is depressing and very oppressive to this person and very sickening, a lot of them come to actually become infused with it. So they don't want the separation. And that's the big fight. Mm-hmm. That's how you separate those two wills and allow one to take possession of the body again. Because a transient possession, when that occurs, that person's free will is kicked out of that body in, of course, theory, and that demonic entity takes over and controls that person. So for possession to end, that person has to be wanting to fight, and it's tough. It is really mind over matter. It's they have to take control. They have to be willing to change their lifestyles, and if they're not, it's just like
that. In fact, the person just will not take a recommendation and change his lifestyle.
Yeah,
what do you do? It's his lifestyle.
Well, a lot of people who invite it back in, they feel something missing.
Yeah.
So once they feel that missing, because they're just so used to what's going on with them, once it's gone, they're like, okay, something's missing, and they get very depressed and they get very withdrawn, and they think that they at first they feel great. You're like, oh gosh, this feels wonderful. I feel the light. But then all of a sudden they're just feeling something's missing, and that's when they invite everything back in, and they, it starts all over again, and they're wondering, what in the world? Why can't I get rid of this? They don't understand. They got to keep fighting.
Yeah.
It's a fight.
Have you ever come across any young people, children, or young adult, because you're saying that somebody has to allow this to come in, what about the innocent who don't know any better, and that's what I'm saying, I'm going to totally go, I'm just going to use it, Emily Rose, she was what, 12, 13,
and she was around that age, but she died. She died because of malnutrition. She didn't die necessarily.
Right. Well, but they speculated, I guess, is that it was she couldn't stand the sound of the fork hitting her plate and the food and chewing food, and they were speculating that it was whatever was
Well, that gave them an answer, to say that. Right. That's a symptom of a type of autism, and that's a very blanket term in itself. It's almost like saying possession. Autism is a physiological brain malady. It has a physiological origin, but that showed that she was hypersensitive to sound. That's a mental disorder. It was interpreted as demonic because that provided an answer. It provided an answer to Annalise and her family. So, but they kept that going too long. They should have sent the medical treatment they sought, but they just didn't go the right avenue.
Yeah. I do truly believe that there was some form of
I do too. That
possession that occurred, because I've heard some of the real recordings of that.
Right.
Which you can, there are some videos on YouTube that are legitimate from that case, actually, you can listen to. And anytime you've listened to the real recordings, that have been audio specialists that are very frequent, like with decibels, and like Tibetan monks on how they can raise their voices. There's certain decibels, right? The voice,
vocal levels.
The vocal levels. So a Tibetan monk is one of the most known to raise their the decibel up to the highest they can within singing. And sometimes with the recordings of possessed individuals, that decibel count is actually much higher than a Tibetan monk, so which is physically impossible. So
the possession.
There was situations in that case.
Yeah, it's real and yet it's not. It's untrue truths that cause these. You can analyze and say the person did not really have a spirit invading their body, but in essence they did. Once the human mind accepts the premise of demonic possession, once the subject believes that can happen, then they are very vulnerable. They're in a whole different echelon then, because they will, with everything that happens, with every voice they hear within their minds, with every hypersensitivity that manifests, they're going to attribute that to the demon, and it becomes the demon. It's a synthesized demonic possession.
Yeah,
that makes it nonetheless real.
And to answer your question about the innocent and kind of go back a little bit about trauma, a lot of people don't realize, and I'm not a psychologist, doctor, I don't claim to be, but you don't understand, if you go through a lot of things these people go through with their hauntings or these possessions or oppressions, you probably kind of think they would develop post-traumatic stress disorder or some equivalent psychological issue because of the things they went through, the trauma they experienced. So they sometimes can't escape that, and that is a big thing too, until they let that go from their lives and overcome it. Not play the victim anymore, and I don't mean to say play the victim in a bad way, but play the victim, then they're not going to overcome that bump. As far as innocence, in that scene retrospect, even if they're innocent by nature, you would think, like Carl says, there would be laws against that, against the feeble-minded.
Yeah.
Situations like that, you would think that there would be some kind of law against it.
There should be rules against that. People who are mentally disabled and vulnerable,
there isn't.
Children should be, protected from that. It just isn't right. But a lot that happens in this world and, outside our world.
But you do tend to see it more towards the adolescent age than the younger age. I've never in my time come across somebody in the single digits of age that is under possession. And I don't think, Carl, you have either.
No, not personally. But every case is there. It's an individual basis.
Yeah. But there hasn't been much documentation of people within the singular age of childhood to have be possessed. It usually starts during adolescence. And of course, there goes the psychological chemical imbalance situation. And
that subject I was addressing all those years ago, he was a boy of 14 years of age, just in adolescence, the cusp of establishing his own identity as it would be in adult life, and a lot of conflict at that age, trying to adjust and all that. So of course there was psychological ramifications.
Well, I was going to say, couldn't a parent or somebody living there, open up doors, bring it in, and you know what I mean? Like, I think I had a conversation with Christopher, now Quarantino, but was Lutz at one point at Phenomenology, and we talked for an hour and a half, up to almost 2 hours. And he had talked about how, the movie portrays his, stepfather to be like this, like, hero, but in all actuality, he's in the basement conjuring up stuff and, doing this and doing that. And, everybody was in the house was, affected by whatever was happening, so that's where I was going to say, if it does happen, could somebody
incite it? Could somebody have caused it, influenced it at least? Yeah, of course. This, environment is a big factor too. I can't think of any demonic case I've ever experienced or researched where there wasn't some kind of trauma or unresolved conflict next. That would uncover it during the interview process and getting to know the subject. So if somebody has some abuse going on, they've stifled that, they'll want to have to deal with it. It's going to come out somehow, and that can be manifested and projected as a demon. It's personified. gets personality. That way, it's detached from the individual. It's easier to understand because it's isolated. It's projected out there. Fight the demon. Get the demon away from me. Once you purge this demon from me, everything will be all right. It externalizes it.
I was working. I can't give too much details, but I was working.
Sure, you can.
But it dealt with two children, more of the older age, but in the same retrospect, though, like with what you're talking about is the person that was most affected by the spirit that was there was somebody that was molested when they were younger. And when they came out with that story, things stopped.
A possession case I was working with in Edmond, Oklahoma, precisely 10 years ago. This October will make 10 years, and the end of September will make 10 years since I was involved in that. And it came out, she was going under, the subject was going under fits of what apparently was demonic possession. There was enough overt paranormal phenomena to substantiate this. You know, well, you got pictures flying off the walls. You got the wind picking up whenever the spirit takes over her. You got bangs on the walls. Of course it's a spirit. How can you deny it? You know, all that was happening. However, it came out when she was in one of her frenzies. It broke like a fever or a blister breaking. She let it be known that she was sexually abused. It came out rape, actually. It came out dramatically, suddenly, as a revelation right then during the expulsion of the spirit. And she was going into what anybody who researches these things would classify as demonic possession. And then it came out, the fever broke, blister broke, and she was so much better after that. And it had to be revealed, and it was a traumatic situation, and it had to be addressed dramatically.
Yeah.
So, you know, I had to have been there to see it and understand it.
Let me see. There was.
Yeah, we got something.
Go ahead.
No, I said, go ahead, Justin. There's a lot of questions probably out there. I kind of lost track there.
Well, we lose track because we're very passionate about our subject matter. So.
Oh yeah.
For sure.
And
we're telling a story.
You know, and we have our singular opinion. He has his opinion on it. I have my opinion, but that doesn't discredit the thousands of theories based upon the subject that are out there. You know, there are so many different theories and opinions based on this matter. And
well, you bounce things off. You bounce, cases off and theories and ideas. So of course, that's what makes it great to be in a team like that.
Well, you've heard of the Dybbuk box. It's a Jewish tradition, a Kabbalistic belief that a demon and a spirit can be trapped and confined to a box, usually a wine cabinet or something. James believes.
This is before I went sober.
Yeah, James believes that there is a demon in this bottle. Well, you see, it's almost empty now. Cork that and screw that on, and this demon must never take this cap off, because this is where the demon is, and he keeps this there as a warning. Well, this is with the label. A nice bottle, isn't it? Oh. Right there.
You keep that thing nice and tight over there with you.
I have a display of all Glenlivet, some of the scotches, and
yes, an array of Dybbuk bottles.
Wait, there's the demon named Bacardi.
There's the demon named Bacardi. A man named Kenny Biddle tends to bring that demon.
Yeah. It scares everybody, all the other spirits away too.
Yeah, that was, remember the White Hill, James?
We're all drinking on the panel.
We're at a lecture, we're at a panel, and me and another woman, James is here, Kenny's here, and they're just going at it. I'm like, I don't think I'm getting a word in this panel, and they're just going at it. All of a sudden, James,
an educational forum, and you actually had fun. Well, where's the academia in that?
No, you joking saying that we had fun on a panel?
Fun on a panel.
He takes his collar off, and then here comes the big flask. Kenny brings out a big flask, and that's when we all started. Yeah, it was great.
That was a good discussion.
The spirits came out.
I like having discussions with Kenny because it never gets detrimental. It never gets very negative. He's willing to have a conversation with you as long as you're not, in his opinion, funny.
Right.
I like when James is lecturing, and towards the end, he'll take off his Roman collar and toss it into the front row. So you grab it.
I don't do that.
Hey, girl.
I would never. I respect that uniform too much to do that. So
it's a bummer when you lose that, isn't it?
Unless I'm going to swig some alcohol, but.
All right, so I have to ask you guys a question. Did you ever see the movie? I always bring this up because to this day I could watch it and it scares me to death. The Entity with Barbara Hershey.
Yeah,
I went to the house.
I saw when it came out.
Yeah, I probably did watch it, but it doesn't come to me. There's so many
70s, and it was like this this woman apparently was being sexually assaulted by, at first, one, wound up, at one point there was 3, and this and that. But at first she went to a psych. She thought she was going crazy because of the things that were happening, but because it was literally like beating her up and raping her and doing all kinds of stuff. And she moved from state to state to state. It followed her, and then at one point, and I'm only bringing this up because you're saying about boxes and putting stuff in it. At one point there was a team of, I don't even know, PhDs or psychologists and researchers that recreated what her house looked like, trying to trick this thing into being where she was at, and at any sign that they saw. And this was legit, like they really did this. They really recreated her house. There's and thought they would like that freeze dry stuff, They just made her run out and just did this whole big freeze dry thing through this whole entire house. They thought they had it, and this woman's for a week or two is living life and all of a sudden, boom, just starts happening again,
I remember
she
that.
recently did pass away. She was living in Texas, but I think the attacks became less and less and less over the years, but I mean, oh my Lord, it is I watched that movie and I know it's based on true stuff, but I just didn't know if you guys had ever seen it, what your thoughts are.
Well, talking about movies, actually, that I like on the subject, and maybe Carl has one too, because every Wednesday we get together and we watch a movie usually. It could be paranormal, not paranormal. So
something good for you.
Maybe something good tonight. But I like The Right and Hereditary.
My favorite.
The Right is awesome.
The Right.
Yeah. That is
Hereditary, you ever watch that?
No.
It's spooky.
Which movie?
Hereditary.
Oh, no, I didn't see that one yet. Did you see it?
Yeah, that's out there. Yeah.
It's out.
It's out there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, The Right and Emily Rose are my two, top favorites.
Emily Rose is about my favorite as it comes.
Yeah.
Yes. That's
And two, that like I said, with us talking about Annalise McKell, that inspired a whole country to ban exorcisms for a very long time. So it's a pretty interesting case in itself.
Yeah.
Wait, I wish we had more time, but this is going to open up. But somebody just asked, I'm still wondering about the correlation between demons and aliens.
Good question. That's a good question.
There seems to be similarities.
I'll say two things, and Carl will say something. One's a celestial being, and one is extraterrestrial. Guess what? They mean the same thing, basically. So there you go is my answer for tonight.
That was short and sweet. I like to think of the angel and demons connection by terming them ultra-terrestrials, not so much extraterrestrials, but ultra, still of the earth. But yeah, there's going to be something. It's very mysterious, of course. What answers do we have? But they do have similar traits, and I think many of the demons, and this would correlate to what was seen, reported and depicted during the Middle Ages, and UFOs appear in Renaissance paintings, and they've been around since time immemorial. So I think many of these demons are they're projections of aliens, what we call aliens.
Mm-hmm.
Again, they become blanket terms. Demon, wicked spirit, alien, extraterrestrials. And
add one thing too is you got to remember there were 9 different kinds of species of aliens or different classifications of angels. So if there are different subspecies of angels, then if angels became demons, fallen angels, so that there are a lot of theories that there are similarities, but Carl and I actually do lecture on the similarities and differences. Like Sabrina and I both have dealt with MUFON and worked together on that one case as well.
I like the MUFON.
You know, there are a lot of similarities that make you think that somebody could be possessed, but in fact that you realize that there is not a possibility of this.
Are demons aliens in spirit form, or are they demons that require conveyances that need spaceships to get around? You know, that project themselves as three-dimensional beings. Yeah.
What is it? What the Fourth Kind movie? Was it?
Close Encounters of the
Close Encounters of the Fourth Kind. They were invisible aliens. They would possess people. But
that was a really spooky movie. That was
they didn't have physical bodies in that movie. You got to remember that.
Yeah.
They could.
This girl has asked this twice. So Miranda, I'm sorry, she's asked twice now. So I'm just gonna put it out there, really quick.
Yeah, because it was the Close Encounters.
Yeah.
Are there any tests someone can do to communicate with past loved ones without opening up any negative doors, like flashlight tests or asking for bangs on the walls? What is the most reliable?
Well, you're on shaky ground as soon as you start. Then, of course, there's no total safeguard against that. You do not know if you're opening up a portal that could let in something undesirable. You do not know if the answers you're getting are authentic, you know, if they are really the deceased person you're looking for. You can only experiment and make your own estimation.
Yeah.
You know, set it up as reliably as you can. You might get something that imitates your deceased loved one. And I'm not saying a trickster demon. I'm saying something that is almost like an algorithm that is created in a spiritual sense, and it behaves as the living person was. Or you might get the genuine thing. Maybe you did get your deceased loved one or the one you're desiring to speak to. I'm afraid the answer is you just can't know with any real reliability. You make your own decision, judgment. Maybe it will say something that only you knew and will reveal itself that way. Then again, maybe deceased loved ones do come through and try to talk to us sometimes, especially shortly after their departures.
Yeah.
You know, it could be.
I will say quickly is that if
you don't know,
I think you will know, in my opinion, if there's a loved one nearby. They will show a sign that was something they would relate to. And some say that is a coin, some say that's a specific bird or butterfly, something they see when they're thinking of that person and it appears. So I think that isn't the case in times where maybe there's a loved one there. But even though I do it, I try not to tell people that. Anytime you speak with someone that you don't see, as I said, there could be dangers to that. So just remember, anytime you see someone that isn't physically there with you, you have to be careful so you don't know who you're talking with. But if you really want to know when you passed on, they'll give you an answer when it's time. And I always try to tell people that. Some people are just want to talk to that person, and I understand that. But they'll talk to you if they're ready.
Again, it's an individual basis.
Yeah.
I don't mean to negate the premise. I don't mean to totally negate the premise of speaking to a loved one, because I believe my mother, who passed away October 1st of last year, very beloved by our family. And I was extremely close to my mother. I believe she has come through and given signs. When you don't expect it, it's not like we're saying, Mom, we need to hear from you.
Right.
Yeah. Sometimes it will present itself, sometimes in the form of a cardinal, the bird, the red bird, but she adored those birds. And so, well, my niece had an experience 2 weeks ago or something, and somebody had told her, you're going to see a cardinal, that'll be your mother. And it's like a gifted person who didn't even want her name associated with it, not looking for recognition. And that cardinal, there was a cardinal in the middle of the road where my niece was driving. She stopped. This bird is injured. Or something's wrong. I've got a chance and move it aside. And the cardinal just stayed there, and then until she came right up and reached her hand out, then it flew straight up and went away. It wasn't injured or anything, but it was enough to stop her car and all that. So, and you analyze it. Yeah, it was a bird in the road, but you wonder, because several signs come out in several different ways. I think she's coming. And another loved one that I lost, she was giving signs. If I told anybody who was like psychically gifted, they would say, "How can you doubt that she was coming through to you?" I said, because I wanted to believe it. I'm suspicious.
Right.
But I lost a loved one, and she was coming through, and it was sort of remarkable. Always, or almost always, in signs of 3, and it was just uncanny. And then the sign stopped after a week. So who's to say? Although her voice did come through in an EVP, I said, "That's your voice."
That's awesome.
That is awesome. That is awesome.
Well, I hate to do this because, we can always take this party over to the Paranormal Brews page and we can just continue our live
discussion. I'm not.
We get that for episode 2.
Jeremy Leonard is watching. Hi, Jeremy. But yeah, I feel like somebody said that last time they just like cut us off, so I don't even know if people can even still hear us. I don't even know.
We're in this afterlife of the broadcast now. Hearing us.
No, we should have talked about that.
Okay. But that's funny because my memories came up and it was OceanCon.
Oh.
So my memories came up today of OceanCon. So this is anniversary. The last time I seen you, Gar, was at OceanCon.
Awesome. Yeah, that was the panel that we spoke at with Keith. Yep.
Yeah. Go, Keith. I didn't even have a chance to do my Keith Johnson impression. That's my twin brother.
Jeez.
Oh, Megan said they still hear us, so.
They still can hear us. Nice.
Well, it's glad to know that they, in this afterglow, they can still hear us.
Paranormal Warehouse.
Yeah. He's barking at the demons. I know everybody hears my dog. It's going to be a thing. I don't know why he does it. It's like, he's like mad I have the door shut or something. I don't know. He's like got to be like attached to me. He's my little shadow. Well, yes, thank you. So if anybody has any questions that, there's the, thank you, Elise, for sharing that. For, these are wonderful, awesome guys. We want to have you on again for sure, because that was just.
We want to spend more time answering questions.
Yes. And I'm saying, this is a subject that I think everybody really wants to really talk about and learn about. And, what better to guys, to learn from it from,
a lot to learn.
Yes, for sure.
We don't know everything either. We learn something new every day, and that's important.
Yeah. And you can't believe in a lot of the shows, Haggins, and all that stuff. You know what I mean? Because,
we're not running for anything, so we can pretty much say what we want, and give our opinions. I'm surprised I haven't had my demonology badge revoked for some of my.
Yes, we get a special badge, guys. It's the coolest thing.
Well, I want to thank you for coming on. Thank you so much. I'm sure we could probably talk for 17 hours, but
definitely
we don't have that much time.
Marathon.
And you guys are great company too, and great friends. So it's even better. When you especially know people, it's like you guys, you have better chemistry.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. So we'll have to set up a new date and we'll have to get you guys on again because everybody was really into tonight's show.
Lots of questions.
You have our handle if you want, to further your questions.
Definitely.
Chat.
Absolutely.
And we take on cases too. If you want to reach out, 401-808-7416. Reach out if you need help.
Applied Demonology.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
See ya.
Good night, guys.
All right.
Adios.
Good night.
Adios, bandidos.
All right. Let me just end because I don't know.
Bye, guys.
Bye, guys. Next week we have, what's next week? Next week we have Pam and Steve Barry.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Okay.
They're still coming on.
Okay. Awesome.
So,
Okay.
All right, guys. Good night. We'll see you guys next week.
Good night.
Adios.